Imagine this. It's the year 1776. You're living in one of the American colonies, far from the British Empire's center of power. Your life is controlled by laws, taxes, and decisions made by a monarchy 3,000 miles away. Taxes are rising, and new laws are being passed without your input. It feels like there's no way out. You can't voice your opinions in the British Parliament, and it seems that everything you value is being taken away. It's frustrating. It's unfair. But there's a growing thought that maybe, just maybe, the time has come to break free. That's right. A revolution is brewing, and it's all about to culminate in one extraordinary document. Welcome to the story of the Declaration of Independence. Before we dive into the dramatic moments of 1776, let's understand the seeds of frustration that were planted years earlier. Imagine being in the colonies, rising populations, growing cities, expanding trade. Yet, despite all of this progress, the colonies were being forced to deal with British taxes on everything from tea to glass. They were being told how much they could trade, what they could buy, and who they could do business with. On top of that, they had no representation in Parliament, the body that made these decisions. The colonists didn't have a voice in the very laws that were controlling their lives. They began to question, why are we being taxed and controlled by a government that doesn't represent us? Why should we obey laws from an ocean away? Fast forward to 1773. A moment happens in Boston that becomes a symbol for everything the colonists are fighting against. It's the Boston Tea Party. A group of colonists, disguised as Native Americans, board British ships carrying tea and throw it all into the harbor. Why? Because of a tax on tea that they weren't willing to accept. This wasn't just about tea. It was about resisting British authority. It was a powerful message that said, we will not stand for this any longer. The British, furious at this act of rebellion, responded with the Coercive Acts, also known as the Intolerable Acts. These were a series of punitive laws meant to punish Massachusetts and quell dissent. Instead, they only united the colonies further. They saw this as a direct attack on their rights, and it was clear that the fight wasn't just about taxes anymore. It was about their freedom and the very way they governed themselves. By 1774, the Continental Congress was formed. Delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies gathered in Philadelphia to discuss their grievances. They weren't yet thinking of full independence. They just wanted to send a message to Britain. They sent petitions, like the Olive Branch Petition, hoping to resolve things peacefully. They wanted to remain loyal subjects, but under more reasonable terms. But Britain wasn't interested in peace. King George III refused to even consider their petition, and things quickly escalated. By April 1775, the first shots of the American Revolution were fired at Lexington and Concord. The colonists were now at war with Britain, and with every battle it became clearer. If they wanted to win this war, they would need more than just a desire for freedom. They would need independence. And so the idea of breaking away from Britain started to feel more inevitable. By 1776, the American Revolution was in full swing. The colonies were engaged in battles with British troops, and tensions were rising. But the idea of complete independence from Britain wasn't universally accepted. Many still believed that reconciliation was possible. Some even feared that declaring independence would lead to disaster. What if the colonies lost the war? What if they were crushed by Britain's much stronger military? If they failed, the signers of any declaration would be branded as traitors. But the other side, led by fiery patriots like John Adams, was becoming more and more convinced that full independence was the only way forward. Enter Thomas Jefferson. He was given the task of writing a document that would change history forever. The Continental Congress wanted something powerful, something that would not just state their reasons for breaking away from Britain, but also declare the core beliefs that would define this new nation. Jefferson was more than just a great writer. He was an idealist, a philosopher who understood the power of words to create change. In his first draft, he wrote about the inherent rights of people, stating that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Jefferson wasn't just declaring the colonies' right to break away from Britain. He was laying the foundation for the principles that would guide the future of the United States. By July 4, 1776, after days of debate and revisions, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. The document wasn't just a political statement, it was a bold proclamation of freedom, liberty, and a new way of thinking about government. And then, the signing. John Hancock, president of the Continental Congress, signed his name with such boldness that it's now synonymous with the act of signing anything important. The 56 men who put their names on that document knew they were taking a huge risk. If Britain won the war, they would be executed as traitors. But these men were willing to risk it all. They knew the stakes. They knew that this declaration would not only impact their lives, it would impact the lives of future generations. And so, with courage and conviction, they signed. They made their stand for independence, not just from Britain, but for the principles that would shape the nation to come. The Declaration of Independence didn't just mark the end of a colonial relationship, it marked the birth of a new idea. The idea that government should be based on the consent of the governed, that all people are entitled to certain rights, and that freedom should never be taken for granted. Over the years, the Declaration's words have inspired countless movements for equality and justice, both in the United States and around the world. It's been the basis for the abolition of slavery, the fight for women's rights, and the civil rights movements of the 20th century. The ideas contained within that document have served as the bedrock for the freedoms we continue to protect today. So, from the ashes of revolution, a new nation was born. A nation founded not just on rebellion, but on the radical belief that all people have the right to live freely, to speak their minds, and to pursue happiness on their own terms. The Declaration of Independence didn't just create the United States, it created an enduring idea, one that would influence the world for centuries to come. Every time you hear the words, "We the people," think of what those words really mean. Think of the courage it took to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. And think of how those words are still being brought to life today by people fighting for freedom, justice, and equality. Thank you for joining us in this journey through history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Declaration of Independence, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves history as much as you do. Until next time, keep learning, stay inspired, and remember, the story of liberty is far from over.